Testing. All right. My first selection will be. So how is day turn going, everyone, so far? Raise your hand. This is show of hands of you who have already mastered a course in day turn. Raise your hand if you've already mastered. Excellent. So as we are awaiting our speaker to come, just want to remind you that we will have speakers every Wednesday. They are related to our design challenge this year. As you guys know, this is something that I probably don't have to go before the wonderful, the outstanding students here at Metro. But you know our expectations when we have speakers come into our house, that we give them our undivided attention. We listen attentively, and we make sure that if you have any questions there, ideas and concerns, you can share those in advisory, get feedback. Sometimes the speaker may even provide an opportunity during the presentation for you to ask questions. So if something sparks your interest and you have something on your mind during the presentation, keep that in the back of your mind so that if there is an opportunity for you to ask questions, feel free to do so at the appropriate time. We wanted to make sure that students aren't standing along the walls during the presentation. That can become a distraction for the speakers. That's why you've been asked to take a seat or switch together with cubbies, right? So how many of you guys are excited about this term, about J term? Now you? No? You should be excited. If I had the opportunity when I was in school, J term, and I would have been a lot more never on the parade roll here. All right. So now, getting ready to step out of the way. I think we're ready to hear.
Okay, good morning, guys. I know I'm talking to the speaker to the microphone, so it seems a little weird here. But as Mr. Olson was just talking about, we're going to be getting this every Wednesday, different lectures that you're going to get that are all related to the design challenge. And so what we decided with today was to give you guys the tools to start the design challenge. So some of you guys as seniors, you know the design cycle, you've used the process. As freshmen, you may not be quite as familiar. You've heard about us talking about it at Metro. But what we're going to do today is Chris and George. Chris is coming up. He is a professional engineer, problem solver, works for PASS Foundation, and George is with Stanley Black & Decker. And they're going to give you an example of how they use the design cycle, design process in their professional lives. So they'll give you examples, and we talk about it, like I said, from in a math class, in a science class, you know, how we use this, but they're going to tell you exactly how they go about it and use it on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so Chris, George will be set up here in a second. I don't have any jokes.
This is better. Thanks. That's good.
Just as Eric said, that they're getting the PowerPoint set up, remember, I think there was a little confusion today about as you're completing your courses for master's, there are two things you want to make sure of. You want to make sure that the teacher has signed off on a grade change form. And you also want to make sure that that form is turned in either electronically or in person to Ms. Freeze. Right? If that is not done, then guess what? You don't receive credit for mastering the course. So the most important thing you do in J-Term as you master the course and you're ready to move on, actually there are three things on that list. One, make sure that the teacher signed off, make sure that paperwork or electronically and information is shared with the screens. Then number three, come see me or the space to be assigned an additional course or independent study. There are a handful of students currently that have No independent study classes to take. They've been assigned to a special teacher who will be signing in virtually. If you get to that point, you don't have anything else to turn in, we'll place you into that class, and you'll be checking in Wednesdays virtually on during take turn. I think we are ready to begin.
Hello everyone. I'm Chris. Again, an engineer, problem solver, inventor, whatever you want to call it. Just somebody that comes up with a lot of cool ideas. And
George, I have a question. Same basic description, but I get to work the hardware and the software.
great. So we're not going to bore you by standing up here and talking a lot, but we're going to just watch a little video real quick. Okay. So the first person to be able to name this movie, I think all of you are way too young for this movie, but who's seen it? Alright, so you probably know what scene I'm going to show you, right? Who's seen this movie? Raise your hand. Okay. Well, not too many people.
Clementine never feared for her personal safety until Taco Bell introduced $1
Make sure you go to Taco Bell. Is that what it's called? That's what we call a bad day. A bad day. Hey, we got a problem here. What do you mean? Nothing to do with tanks. Whoa. Hey. This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we have a problem. Here it is. Famous line. We have a situation brewing with the carbon dioxide. We'll see what's in filter problem in the module. 5 filters on the list. We can wait for 2 guys for a day and a half. So I told them they're already up to 8 on the pages. Anything over 15, you get hair judgment, blackouts, the beginnings of play. That's existing Zoom, and then we're just sort of digging around a hole.
Okay, people, listen up. These upstairs, and it's this one, so we gotta come through. We gotta find a way to make this fit into the hole for this. Using nothing but that. Let's get to
It's literally poisoning the astronauts everywhere.
Heads up, people, look out now.
What's this?
That's what they gotta make.
Okay. So, I want everyone to keep that in mind, okay? Everyone, put that in your brain, store it, temporary memory. Let's jump to something else real quick, okay? So, one of the things
let's talk about flying. Right, flying's pretty cool, right? Who's been on a plane? I think probably a lot of people, right? Okay, so flying is something that is kind of a recent development. It's something that's happened recently. I think in just over 100 years ago, I'd say. Power controlled flight. That was the Wright brothers, Dayton. Who's been to Dayton? Who's been to the museum, Dayton? So I know when I was a student, one of the things, I think flying is one of the most amazing engineering feats. It's probably one of the things that led me to become an engineer, just flying. It's just think about it. Look at the birds, and now we can take this big airplane and sit in it, and we can go flying off to all kinds of places in the world. So, when I was a student, one of the things that inspired me about flying was I saw this paper airplane demonstration. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I saw these airplanes, they designed these airplanes, and they were able to fly them across the room. And they just made a few small, minor changes to those designs, and then you'd see a whole different result. You'd see a plane that can do all these flips and stuff, just with a few minor changes. So flying is it's amazing to me. And airplanes are amazing to me. And now we have drones, and we have all kinds of other things that fly. So, I think we should do a design challenge together. I think that's the best way. Again, we're not into standing up here and talking the whole time. Let's do a design challenge together. Let's design an airplane, okay? So, George is going to hand out paper, okay? And we're going to design an airplane. Everyone get a piece of paper, or maybe get in little groups. Let's take 5 minutes, and we're going to design an airplane. We can get into groups too to make it a little faster. It's going to take 5 minutes. Let's design an airplane, okay?
questions? Everyone's happy with your design? Okay. All right, hold on to your designs for us, our airplane designs. Hold on to your designs. We're gonna do a little talking. Okay? So, let me introduce George here. George is one of the, and I'm gonna embarrass him here, he's one of the most amazing inventors, minds that I've met. He's very creative. And so George he's got a great career, and he's gonna speak to some of the experiences he's had in the design process and how he uses it every day in his work. So let me hand it over to George.
Thanks for being here. Understanding my travel here. I appreciate being here and I feel we've got science around the place with that memory, modify it. I work with hardware companies on high power electric. Sometimes we blow up. We'll smoke them down. Where the problem is, it's obvious for the smoke. Right? It's not supposed to smoke because the side parties.
Hey.
I was working on an electronic power meter before anybody else had electronic power meters. You know, the power meter on the side of the house or apartment. Somebody paid for electricity flowing through that, getting measured going to your house. We had this very expensive electronic power meter, and it worked great. Alcoa aluminum involved in people who were running lines, measured lots of power very accurately. We got to the point where everything was going right, and we relaxed for a minute. What we discovered the next day is about half the product was fake. It wasn't accurate. Alarm bells went off. Everything that was accurate kept going out the door. Everything that was inaccurate was piling up, and we didn't know what was going on. We got a team together. We defined what was going into the process, what was going through the process, and what came out. And we were trying to figure out when and where it went bad. Problem solving is looking at that and sorting it out. There's many different ways to problem solve. What we did was quantify the inputs, the process, and the outputs. And we even had to work backwards to figure out where things went wrong. Because we measured everything that was going into it, all the transformers, electronic components for everything. And when we got to the end, even though everything was perfect, close enough, assembled in the right place, connected the right way, it did not work. So we got a very expensive pile of products piling up. We couldn't figure out what was wrong. We already knew the inputs of the process was supposedly well defined. We actually had to sit down and walk the product through each step, each manufacturing step. And even though this was an electronics product measuring lots of electricity, it had a mechanical component in it. We took a transformer, okay, coils of wire around a precision iron core, and mounted it to a board. We had 6 of them. Somebody decided that the metal tabs that held it to the board should be bent over with a hammer. They were tired of gently using the pliers and twisting it. Let's just use a hammer. It only takes a few seconds. The steel in those transformers was a precision manufactured, heat-treated steel that was very good and very linear. It did great things, except when you hammered it. If you dropped the transformer, it was bad. If you hammered it, that was really bad. We managed to find the person, only one person who started doing the hammering, and we caught it before it spread to all of them, trying to speed up the process. So, hammering bad, process was bad. It wasn't documented other than this is the way you do it. If a verbal piece of documentation, or even something that's written down that people aren't familiar with, or the reason for it, if that instruction is not followed, things fall apart. We fixed it, we changed the process, we educated the people, product worked again. what you take away from that is that there are pieces to the puzzle you have to work through. You can work through forward, backward, but unless you define the pieces of the puzzle, what your goal was, where you started, the constraints along the way, you're not going to get there. With, you might discover something else similar to that.
Okay, so let me ask real quick. Any questions about your airplane design? Any questions based on what George talked about? Any questions? Yeah. How far are we supposed to go? Well, let's see. I think typical airplane, the range depends on the size of the airplane. I think you can have regional jets. You can have jets that travel the world. So I think it depends on the plane. But in our case, we do want it to be able to travel both regionally and internationally. Other questions about your airplane design? Yeah.
Were we supposed to design or build an airplane?
Airplane design was the task.
Oh, sure.
Airplane design. Other questions about your airplane design? Can your airplane design, can it travel regionally, both maybe Ohio, Kentucky, or can it travel internationally perhaps? I got a few nods, yes, which is interesting. But so let's come back to George's point here in a second. I want to talk about the video. We'll come back to the airplane design in a second. Let's talk about the video. So I want to go around the room real quickly, and I want to ask what some interesting things are that stood out in the video of you. What are kind of some of the neat things? If you're thinking about process, what did you see in the video that relates to the design process? Let's couch it that way. So just go ahead and raise your hand and I'll come over and you get a little mic time. What did you see in the video? Yes, or you can stand up and speak because you're really far away and I don't want to walk over there.
First, the guy brought the supplies in and he said, he said what the problem was and what they had to work with.
Okay, good. So I heard something about there was a problem. Houston, there's a problem. Okay, what else? Yeah.
But there weren't any documentation of what they were doing during the process.
That's a great point. So you just kind of threw it on the table and said, here it is, right? Okay, other interesting things that you noticed? Yes?
They didn't have like a blueprint as to how it was going to put it together, but they just said like this is what they have to build. They didn't have any instructions, like written instructions.
Okay, yeah, so didn't really have anything to go from, kind of just threw all that stuff on the table. Other interesting things? Maybe one or two more? Anyone? Teachers, how about? Anyone? Nothing interesting? It was kind of a boring video? I think that movie was actually up for a few Oscars, so it was pretty good movie. Time constraints? Good. So time constraints, how about one more interesting thing about the video? How about someone in the front row? What do you think? Anything interesting? Prototype, was there a prototype? What was the prototype? What did it look like? It was square, it was round. Okay, so the video, let's talk about that. So all really good observations. I think actually prototype's a good thing that we hear a lot about. But let's kind of look at it this way. Let's talk about it as a process. So the first thing is something happened, right? They're flying around in space. There's a shimmy. There's a shake. Something's not right. And Houston, we have a problem. So something happened, right? And the folks down in Houston said, yeah, we have a problem. They looked at their screens, and so they identified the problem. They said, yeah, we do have a problem. Here it is. something's wrong with the CO2 filter, and they were able to identify the problem. So that's the first thing in our process, is we need to identify the problem. What is the problem that we're dealing with? The next thing that happened is what I think we call an essential question, right? So what's the question here? What was the question with Apollo 13? Yep.
How they can get like the circular square box.
Almost. That's good. That's good. That was one of the questions, but I think we had a question even before that. What was the question? Right, we're getting close. That's real close. What went wrong, right? Okay. Yeah, but we kind of determined, we know we have the problem. They figured out it was a CO2 filter. Yeah, so I think that's pretty close. I think it was, well, how do we get these guys to survive in space when they're breathing CO2 now? CO2 levels are increasing. So I think Ed Harris, he's the guy that had, he's the boss there in that scene. And he said, yeah, I think you guys need to figure that one out. I think you need to figure out how we're going to keep our guys up there when their CO2 levels are increasing every minute. So that was the essential question. So they throw it over to the nerds, the guys that had all the stuff on the table. They said, okay, we have this problem to solve. We know what the essential question is. And what did they do? They threw all kinds of stuff on the table. And so what does that represent? That represents resources. Those are the resources they have. So they have resources. They know what the problem is. Anything else they should think about? And I think we alluded to it. Gentleman, sorry. Mr. Matthews mentioned time. Time. So was time an issue here? Was that something to think about? Yeah, because they're going to die. They're going to die in space, so time was a factor. So we call that a constraint. So we said, here's a constraint. So we have a problem, we have an essential question, we have a constraint, we have our resources on the table, and now we can go out and we can begin designing. So George raised this question, we have to know something about what we're doing before we do it. Dare I go back to the airplane design? So, who wants to give me an example of their airplane design? Raise your hand. Need a couple examples? This young lady here. Can you stand up and come up here real quick? Come on up here. Give us an example. Tell us about your airplane design. Do you have a name for it? Tell us about it. How did you decide?
Need you to speak a little
I hope you
louder.
folded it? Okay. Tell me about it though. What do you have going on here? Is it an actual airplane? Good call. Okay. So do you want to just present it or demonstrate it, I guess? What do you want to do? All right, let's go paint it. Whoa. I don't know if that's going to make it to Kentucky or Georgia or anything. I don't think it'll make it to France for sure. So did that mean, was that successful? Was that a successful design? Why was it successful? You said yes? Good point. Good call. I don't think it'll get me to France, but you're right. I can take it to France. Let's have one more example. Over here, you want to come on up? You want us to tell us about your airplane? Okay, your airplane. You hope it works. All right. I guess you're going to demonstrate it then. Okay, go for it. Did that meet our goal here? No. Why not? Why did neither of these examples, why did they not meet our goal? What's that? I didn't go to Georgia, right? What did I ask? What did I ask a design of what? Okay. What kind of plane? Did I say paper airplane? I gave you paper. Doesn't mean I asked everybody if they wanted a pen or pencil to design an airplane, and nobody raised their hand.
I got one.
Oh, you all failed.
No, I didn't.
Drop the mic, come on.
I designed a plane.
No, seriously, let's talk about this for a second. Oh, wait.
I designed a plane.
Bring it up here, let's see.
So this design, it's not flawless. I'm no aerodynamics expert, but it's if there was a model of it, I would probably make it out of a bottle and some pieces of paper. But that gives you an idea of the shape. It would have a mostly cylindrical body and that narrows down to a fine point. Have 2 wings, each about 4 meters long and 1 centimeter thick at the tip, and 4 centimeters thick at the very end.
Alright, let's hear it from Calvin. So, let me just say about Calvin. Calvin, that's awesome. You did awesome. That is fantastic. But Calvin, you're wrong too. Calvin, you're wrong too. And all of you are wrong. Why are you wrong? Why are you wrong? What's going on here? What are we trying to get to? Let's talk about the movie. Let's talk about what George talked about. What is it that we need to do when we first start to tackle a problem? What do we need to do? We need to ask a question. I think I asked all of you 5 or 6 times, do any of you have a question about your airplane design? And no one asked the question. No one researched and understood what the problem was. And that is a critical step in design. That's the most critical step. Because I can design anything. But I can't design anything if I don't know what it is I'm designing it for. What is the problem? What is it that I'm trying to do? What's the essential question? What are the constraints? What are the resources I have? If I don't know these answers to these questions, then I'm just wasting my time. And that's something we don't have a lot of, right? We don't have a lot of time. We don't have a lot of money. That's what engineers do. Engineers figure it out with time and money. Otherwise, you're just a scientist. Who wants to be a scientist, right? So engineers embrace the design process because we ask the question, we understand the constraints, we understand the resources, and then we apply those to a design. Okay? So all of you did a good job with the airplanes, but again, all of you assumed that you knew just because you saw a picture of a paper airplane up here, and I talked about my inspiration for flying, you assumed that, oh, I'm going to design a paper airplane. And the gentleman over here, again, he's the only one that actually said, okay, well, hey, maybe I need to design a different kind of plane, which is a good step. But even you didn't ask a question of what kind of plane? Where's it going? What do you need to do with it? What do you mean by airplane? Right? Yes?
One person actually asked, do you make an actual airplane?
Okay. So those are the kinds of questions we do want to ask, okay? So make sure when you're presented with your design challenge, the first thing to do is not to jump in and just start designing. The first thing to do is, what are the important questions I need to ask? What are my constraints? What are my resources? What's the essential question? And then you can move forward from there. Okay? So we've done that. We've asked our question. And let's go back to the video, refer to it. Let's talk about the resources and constraints. We talked about that. So what happens next? So they dropped their finished product on the table. They said, "Here you are, we're finished." And they didn't have the luxury of going up and putting it into the spaceship and testing it. They only had one chance at it. But if we were actually designing an actual product, what we would do is we would take that product, and somebody used the word prototype, which is a great word. So they use the word prototype, and what we mean by that is you're going to take what it is you designed, and you're going to go out there and you're going to test it. So a prototype is an early version of something that we can go and test. So we test it, and we learn from it. And then we go back and we do some more designs. And then we come back and test it. And then we do more design. And we go back and test it. And we do more design. When does that stop, though? When do we stop? When do we stop designing and testing and designing and testing? Okay, why is that? That's awesome. That's a great answer. What's your name? Sydney. Great answer. Let's hear it for Sydney. That's a great answer, because the truth is you can never have a perfect product or a perfect solution to your problem, because there's always something you're going to be able to do. So how do we know, Sydney, that we're finished? How do we know when we're done in the process? Should we just keep going then and just keep on making it better? Why not? Oh, there's the word. Those are the two words I'm looking for. Time, money. And what do we call time and money? What's the word that I just said we need? What's one of the things we understand? Not resources. Constraints. I heard someone say it. Constraints. So time and money are constraints. So that's when we stop designing, when our constraints dictate that we can no longer continue. We can't continue because of time, we can't continue because of money, we can't continue because of some other constraint, okay? So now we've kind of laid it out through our video, through our airplanes. There's a process. At the front of the process is collect information, understand the problem, ask the right questions, gather your resources, identify your constraints. Then we begin design. And as George alluded to, and some other folks over here, let's even document it along the way so we know what we're doing, and we can refer back to it. And then once we're complete with our initial design, maybe we have a prototype, and we do some testing, and then we iterate, and we do some more testing, and we iterate, and we do some more testing, we iterate, and then finally we come to the point where our constraints kick in, we've run out of money, we've run out of time, and we have to deliver what it is we have. We drop it on the table and say, here you go. So when you start looking into your design challenge that's coming up, think of this process. Think about how you're going to work through it, how you're going to gather the information, what are the questions you need to ask, what are the constraints, what are the resources. Don't just jump in and try to solve the problem before you know what the problem is. And that's really what we do. That's what we've learned over the course of our careers, is that it's really important to understand the problem so you get the solution right. Even though the solution might be wonderful, does it meet and solve our problem? And that's what it's really all about. Okay, so good luck with your design challenge. Appreciate your attention today. Apollo 13 is a great movie. Go check it out. Thank you.
Tomorrow during advisory, you will receive your design brief, and you will begin doing some of that background researching in order to really familiarize yourself with the issue that you're studying. Wait, some of you are still trying. so you'll really get to dig into researching to find out a little bit more about the problem. And then we'll start on developing these solutions. Teachers will have the design brief as well. We'll be able to give you more information about the constraints of the project and our timelines. But again, thank you. We are going to go into lunch because I